Hi everyone. Today the elections of the European Union is again on the program, and I'm going to talk to you about the debate between Mark Rutte and Thierry Baudet. Yesterday took place. I told you yesterday that this would be the case, and I would report on that, how that went, because today the Dutch people and the British people are going to vote. And it was a very interesting debate. Mark Rutte, who is the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, he challenged Thierry Baudet for this debate, and he did that because he knows he's under threat by the Forum for Democracy, by Thierry Baudet's new party, who won the provincial elections and became the biggest party at present. So he had to do something. He had to go into the attack. So these two guys, they are really two different characters, and they both have two completely different worldviews. So it was a clash of these characters and worldviews, and it did show. And it gives you the opportunity as a voter to make up your mind and to make things a little clearer. Although I personally, there are a lot of things that I would still doubt about, but I don't know. I want to have things on the table. I want to be able to make up my mind. And this is a very good way to do it. That's democracy. That's politics, right? Things are clear on the table. There are things that has to be discussed, and so it happened. And I think Mark Rutte did a good thing to organize to propose this. All right. So what was it all about? So it was a hard debate and a personal debate. It was pretty personal even. They really almost slandered each other in a way. Like Mark Rutte called Thierry Baudet a Russia cuddler. I mean, really, Thierry Baudet attacked Mark Rutte with saying that he felt that he was more like a follower. He was not really a leader, which is pretty severe here. I think it's pretty. I mean, if you call somebody the Prime Minister a follower instead of a leader, that's quite an accusation. I mean, really, that's quite an accusation. So, but I think he meant that Mark Rutte is more of an opportunist because of his way that he's so pragmatic. He just, he's an opportunist. He's an opportunist. It is true. He is a pragmatic, because that's what he said as well about the European Union. Mark Rutte said that the European Union project is actually a pragmatic project, and which is of course totally in contrast with what Thierry Baudet's vision is about the European Union or about anything, because he's a conservative visionary. He does have an idea about a totally different idea of how to approach an institution like the European Union, or more in depth, if you're going to talk about it substantively, his view on the individual, which should not be led by a bureaucratic, technocratic managers organization like the European Union, he claims. All right, so that went pretty tough. It was a little uncomfortable even when they started to talk about real personal, intimate things. Like Thierry Baudet asked Mark Rutte when was the last time that he cried, and Mark Rutte mentioned a couple of his own family members who died, and that was pretty awkward. I think I don't know exactly what Thierry Baudet wanted to achieve there, but I think he wanted to show that Mark Rutte was always that he was superficial, and which didn't work. and that's an understatement. So that was a little awkward. He wasn't very good at that personal level, and there you find as well, I think, the difference between a manager, a professional manager, which Mark Rutte is, and the more academic, romantic style thinker, free thinker like Thierry Baudet, who is a very charming guy and who is very able, but in these matters, the manager would always sort of lighten up the situation, like, okay, it's not getting, let's not let it get too serious. That's not good for the mood. And Thierry Baudet would of course think, well, I'm not going to sacrifice these serious subjects for a better atmosphere or something. He would go into that more seriously, probably, and I think that's the difference. He's a bit more serious. He's even though, of course, Mark Rutte can be very serious as well. I'm not saying that he's not a serious guy, but that's a difference in skill, in management skill, and I don't know which one is better. It's just a difference of the way that you stand in the world, the way that you behave yourself in the world. Thierry Baudet thinks, I want to be a moral person. There are some moral issues here that has to be discussed. I don't care about pleasing people then. I just want it to be discussed, which is also a valid point. All right, so about Russia. The idea was of Mark Rutte, the attacking idea that he proposed was like, okay, you're pro-Putin, too much pro-Putin, he's a threat, he's a danger, and the European Union should be united against Putin. You shouldn't downplay this threat, and you should stand together against a guy like that, because a guy like that needs it, right? So Thierry Baudet said, well, I recognize that he's a danger. However, I feel that we are becoming too much obsessed with Putin and Russia and the threat of Russia. And that this obsession is maybe even probably coming from the idea that, from a motivation of the European Union to legitimize itself by creating an enemy, which he's got a point there. It's a well-known tactic of every nation or big organization. If you are threatened in your existence, or you are questioned, and if you are a little primitive, then you will create an enemy to keep your eyes off yourself towards somebody else, and that somebody else will take the blow. It is definitely a good counter argument, and he said also against that accusation that, well, if you are so concerned about the threat of Russia, why don't you spend more money on defense? Why don't you spend 2%, which was the deal with NATO? You didn't do that now, did you? It was a very good argument. I think he won that argument. He began very well, Thierry Baudet. I really thought he was going to win. But of course, when the personal questions came, and I mentioned before, he made some mistakes there, and he lost the initiative, I think. All right, so that's about Russia. Okay, so then there was this talk about the Nexit and the euro, the problems that we have with Nexit and with euro, which is really an existential discussion about the European Union. Do we need the European Union or not? Are we better off with or without the Union? Which I think is a very valid question. Now you could say you could say, and this was one of the arguments against this whole debate, this is not concerning the European Union. The European Union is not going to decide if you, as a Netherlands, want an exit or not. That's for you to decide, which is true, but still, you have to have a discussion about the usefulness of the European Union compared to the usefulness of a nation state. I think you can't get around that, and you can say, well, that's not the formal way to do things. But when exactly are we going to have this discussion then? Because we had the discussion through a referendum in 2005, it was dismissed. We had a similar discussion about the Ukraine, also a referendum in the Netherlands, it was dismissed. The referendum was held and the people voted against pro-Europe, the pro-European Union decision, but it was dismissed. When exactly is the time that we as a citizen, me as a citizen, that we can talk about this, that we can discuss this and have influence on the decision whether or not we are going to get more and more involved in the European Union or not? So so I think the discussion is valid. It's a good, and they both had a good argument about that. Mark Rutte said, Baudet said the euro leads to a transfer union where Northern Europe is going to pay indefinitely for Southern Europe or the slow moving economies of Europe. And that's a problem. That's not a good thing. The interest rate is held low artificially, and the inflation is about 3%. So our pension funds, we have a very, very large pension fund, is losing money, and is losing value because of it. And we lose money because we have to pay money, we have to through taxes, and it goes to Greece. They're not capable to pay it back, so we lose the money to them. And and what he said was, well, there is this difference in economies, there's this difference in culture, which is not a bad thing in itself, but we are not going to be able to make them exactly like us, because there's too much of a difference here. It's not, and maybe it's not even fair to ask these people that, right? So that was his argument, and then Rutte said, well, an exit or leaving the euro would lead to speculation by the financial markets against the Netherlands, and the banks would fall, and they would go bankrupt. We wouldn't be able to help them up because the Dutch valuta, the Dutch guilder, the florin is called, I think in English, is not strong enough. Wouldn't be strong enough. So you need the euro, which is, well, this is a difficult discussion. But that was his argument, like, well, we need the euro and the European Union for jobs, the internal market, it's too important. If you lose that, of course, Baudet would say, well, Denmark doesn't need the European Union, Sweden doesn't need the European Union, Switzerland doesn't need the European Union, they're well off, there's no problem there. So, well, that's a discussion for people who know a lot about economics. I don't know that much about economics, but that was the discussion. I thought it was a good discussion. It's about it's a very important discussion. It's economics, right? It's what it's all about as well. It's a very, very big issue. All right. Okay, so then the next subject was this movie that Thierry Baudet made, or a clip from YouTube that he retweeted, and there was this clip about it was a clip from the identitarian movement. There are these women or these girls who claim to have been raped or to I don't know if they are actors or if it's real. I don't actually know. I just don't know. But anyway, that clip and the accusation of Mark Rutte was, well, that clip was made by a movement who has connections with the alt-right, with the extreme right. You shouldn't do that, because if you do a thing like that, you will be excluded from making coalitions. As we see now, as we speak today, that's what he said, in the provinces, because some parties say we don't want to have anything to do with that. So now you get in trouble. Here again, the pragmatic against the conservative visionary who has this own morale. What are you going to do? I want to be, so that's of course what he said. I want to be able to mention these problems. These problems shouldn't be covered up, because I don't want to be blackmailed. That's what he said, actually. I don't want to be blackmailed by a bunch of parties who don't want to talk about this problem. It is a problem. It should be mentioned. You could argue then, of course, you're probably right about that. The problem should be mentioned, but why do you have to use the identitarian movement to make your point? That's what I would say, but that's just me. So that was a big clash. I thought it was very interesting, because it definitely is an interest. It's a problem that is discussed a lot in the Netherlands. It moved from there on, of course, to the problem of migration. The Mark Rutte's party, the VVD, it's called. He said, Baudet said about his party, you don't want to do anything about this mass migration. The European Union is not capable of stopping. We have seen it every year. There's about 30,000 migrants coming in the Netherlands. We're not able to control it. So the European Union is simply not capable of defending, or even not willing to control or to limit this mass migration. Okay, so that was his argument, and he said that is a problem. So we might as well. What we should do is to get out of the European Union and make our own borders, just like Hungary did, just like Italy did, and it worked. So the reply of Rutte was that no, we need the European Union to do this. We need this. We need a joint effort to do this. Like the Turkey deal we made. Like we want to make deals with the other countries, and that's the way to organize that. And all by yourself, it's gonna cost us jobs. It's gonna cost us too much effort. It's not going to work because they're coming in anyway, or things like that. And Baudet was, I think that's a very difficult position to defend, because the European Union has not really been able to control these borders. And you even might say that Baudet is right about the intentions of the European, or some there's a tendency towards, keeping a blind eye towards this migration to a certain extent, and you could argue, that's my own. If you think in that direction, you would think about cheap labor and about multiculturalism. These are very strong motivations by the liberals and the progressives in Europe to sort of allow a certain type or a certain kind of mass migration, even if it's sort of illegal or not really the way things should be going. And I would say that I really think that that is actually the case. So so I'm more inclined to follow Thierry Baudet here in this direction. So this was a very good discussion. I liked it very much, and I want to hear more of it. Please. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna do a video Tomorrow, of course, there are elections. So in the Netherlands now and in Britain, so there's going to be results. These results are secret until the end of the whole election. That's strange, very strange, of course. And it wouldn't be, we wouldn't be Dutch if we wouldn't sort of like make our own polls and exit polls. And would say, we're gonna do we're gonna do it the way that we like, and we're gonna figure out how the results are ourselves. So that's gonna happen, and there's gonna be results. I'm gonna give you the results tomorrow. There are some unofficial organizations like Geen Stijl, and I think there's another one who is going to give you the results of the Netherlands and probably in England too. So you're gonna know what happened and what went down tomorrow. I'm gonna give you. I hope I can make another video tomorrow if I have the time. I want to, but we'll see. All right, bye bye.